Welcome to our weekly Timeless Principles for Extraordinary Living with Dr. Alex. Dr. Alex believes that you were born for extraordinary exploits, to be an exhibition of divine abundance. Today's session, as all others, will inspire you to experience extraordinary living. Join Dr. Alex now. Kingdom greetings, family. I am so excited to welcome you to our module 2 of Kingdom Priorities of Management. And today I'm excited to also bring you our teacher, our mentor, who also happens to be my dad. Welcome, Dr. Alex.
Kingdom greetings, family, and kingdom greetings, Sethu. Thank you so much for welcoming me again today. I am so excited to share these timeless principles. These are transformational kingdom principles. And I'm excited today to be introduced, I tell those who are listening, by my sister, who also happens to be my daughter.
Wow. And so, Dr. Alex, in Module 1, you introduced this series called Kingdom Priority of Management. And in continuing with the series, I want to know, and I'm sure the viewers watching as well, what is Module 2 all about?
Well, awesome. I'm excited to introduce Module 2. Indeed, we are continuing with this series. It's a very important series, the Kingdom Priority of Management. I introduced that in Module 1. In Module 2, I'm now going to the basics of management. I will be focusing on the principles, on the practices, focusing on the skills of management, basically looking at the practical applications of management.
Wow, thank you so much, Dr. Alex. I love the part about practical applications. Now, before we get into Module 2, let's just do a quick recap of Module 1. And can you give us one insight just to sum up your thesis about management as a kingdom imperative?
That's awesome, Seth. Of course, just one is a long shot, as I had given a number, but it's important. How I want to just summarize with one insight is going back to the narrative of the kingdom perspective of the scripture. This narrative is clear for us in Genesis chapter 2, reading from verse 4 to 15. And based on this narrative, this is the insight I want really to hammer to you and to every listener. The insight that says, in the absence of effective management, God, Elohim, withholds certain things. He withholds growth, he withholds progress, he withholds increase. The reason he does that, I want to make the statement that's been made by many others, is that it is what you manage more than what you pray for that actually grows, that actually progresses, that actually increases. Because increase is so intertwined with management, it is a kingdom imperative. You see, what we said, just as you've asked me to give you one insight, is that management is core to the kingdom dominion strategy. And the essence of the kingdom is dominion. I tell people, and I tell myself, that Dr. Miles Monroe actually influenced my thinking with that statement, which can be summed up by saying, a manager was God's central motivation to create a human. More than all the religious activities that we think they were God's motivation, it was somebody to manage. Why? Because God wanted a representative, somebody through whom he would exercise dominion. Well, I don't know if it was one insight, but I tried to make it one.
Well, thank you so much for that. And I mean, it's such valuable and an insight that we'll definitely hold on to. And now, in teaching Module 1, you also gave us two case studies to
Yes,
illustrate your
yes,
thesis.
yes.
And just give us one insight to sum up the first case study of the widow woman.
Great, great. So I actually went through two case studies to illustrate this, as you have said. And the first case study was this extraordinary, I call it extraordinary turnaround.
Wow.
It was a case study where we looked at from the book of 2 Kings, chapter 4, from verse 1 to 7. We looked at this woman who was poor to the point of almost losing her sons to slavery. But there was then a turnaround from poverty to abundance. And this turnaround was basically on the grounds of effective management. Let me explain this as I tell you these insights of how this actually happened. This woman, as we were told in the case study, was that she moved from one jug of oil to the business of trading with oil. But how did that happen? She received a prophetic word. But watch this. It was not the prophetic word that changed her poverty. The prophetic word remained hanging until she took action to be an effective manager. You look at that story. Think about this. Nothing new was created. It was the same jug of oil. God didn't create new oil. Nothing extra different came into the place. She only managed. I listed 4 things there. She managed her resources. She managed her team. She managed relationships. And she managed her expectation. Based on that management, extraordinary turnaround respected, listen, sir, you need to capture this. It respected the prophetic word to the extent of her management ability. Because at the end of the story, she's saying, are there more vessels? Yeah. Which means the prophetic word ended where her management ability took her. And that's why the management ability is what turned the story around.
Wow. Wow. And I could just ask you to do exactly the same for the second case study that you gave us, which was about the man with money bags, the second insight on that one.
Great. Yes, we looked at 2 case studies. So the first one was the extraordinary turnaround from poverty to trading in oil. The second case study it was very fundamental as well that we looked at in Module 1. It was a case study that's picked from Matthew 25. When you go to Matthew 25, the case study begins in verse 14, but I started off in verse 1 because it's important to show what this is. This is an extraordinary parable where Yeshua the Christ is introducing the kingdom. In verse 1, it begins by saying, the kingdom of heaven will be like. So whatever he said after that was teaching us about the kingdom. Now, let's track to the verse 14 then, where this parable actually begins, where this case study begins. In this verse 14, there are 3 servants. Just to sum up for those who are not there, there are 3 servants who each receive, some translation says, bag of money. Some translation says bag of gold. Some says talents. But each one of them receives something from their master. I'm just summing up for those who missed the module 1. Now, an important aspect there was that whatever they received did not belong to them. It belonged to the master. An important principle there was the master expected growth. He expected increase. He expected progress. He did not just give them these bags of gold and expected nothing. He expected growth. Consequently then, he expected them to apply their management skills. Because without management, things do not grow, things do not progress, things do not increase. As we engaged the case study last time, we showed that two of these men actually applied their management skills, and when they applied their skills, they experienced 100% growth. Now, you said I must give you the insight. So, what is the key insight there? Okay? I touched so many in the last module, but let me just pull out one because we're just catching up. The key insight there is that the proof for any of us that you trust your God is demonstrated. Let me look at those who are listening to me. By you making management a priority. In other words, it's well enough you tell us, oh, I trust God, then God gives you something. Now, we will know that you really trust him when you make management a priority. Why, you ask me? Because all of us have been entrusted with something. You said we have been entrusted with something. You listening to me today has been entrusted with something. I have been entrusted with something. Yeah. But here is the challenge. The one who entrusted us is expecting whatever he gave us to grow. He's expecting it to progress. He's expecting it to increase. As a matter of fact, said to, he's expecting that by this time next year, something should have grown in your life.
Amen.
If you are, yes, you are in business, it should have grown in your life. Because that's the nature of the kingdom. So that's the key principle here. But now, you will only grow it when you choose to manage, to apply your management skills. Like those two in the case study. It grew, it increased, it expanded because they applied their management skills. This case study goes further to show us another thing that I think is very important here. It actually shows us, if I speak to the listener, it shows us that in the kingdom, management leads to productivity. Let me say the statement again. In religion, I don't know, but in the kingdom, management leads to productivity. In other words, when you don't manage what has been entrusted to you, you are telling God, I don't trust you enough. Well, maybe that's okay, but what really scares me more is that when you don't manage, you are actually telling God that do not entrust me further with more because I will not be productive. In other words, whatever you've entrusted me with, let it end there. Because if you give me more, I'm not going to be productive. That's why then when you read that case study set, you find the following very touchy things. One of them is those who applied their management skills, they are given a new name. They are called faithful. They are called good. But importantly, because they applied the management skills, they were entrusted with greater. In other words, not only do we show that we trust God when we apply our management skill, but we are also inviting him and saying, give me more. You've heard people when they pray,
give me more.
Give me more, give me more. Now, what we are changing here is that manage. Don't just walk around and say, give me more, God. Actually, do your management. When you do management, you are saying to God, give me more. You see, in that case study, what's very sad, that I want you to picture that and never allow you, your friends, and your colleagues to be called what this guy who didn't manage was called. The one who refused to apply management skill, he was called wicked, he was called worthless, he was called lazy, and not only was he given a new title, even what he had was taken away from them. You know, people keep crying, and I make this call again. Why do you keep crying for more? Why do you keep, let me look at somebody listening to me here. Why do you keep saying to God, give me more, yet you don't want to learn and deploy management? It is not the amount of crying. I know you are a singer, so it is not the amount of singing. It is not the amount of gymnastics in religion that will make what we have been entrusted grow. That will make our business, that will make our ministry, that will make whatever it is grow. It is not the amount of crying that will give us an extraordinary life, but it is making management a priority. It is learning the skills of management, which is why I want to do this module 2, which is practical, learning the skills of management, and then deploying those skills. This was the insight. You said I must just give you one. So I have given you one, but unfortunately I've said it in
your own way. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Alex. And what I'm picking up from that, more than anything, is that in the kingdom, management is so important. It's so important. And I want to know, is it something that anyone and everyone can learn?
Wow. Look, I like that because people, especially religious people, which most of us have been, we always pray to be given things. So even as I talk about management, people are praying, God, give me management. God, give me. But you see, the greatest hope about management, it's a learnable skill. I put that word, is a learnable skill. In other words, to you, my dear friends listening, kingdom citizens listening, is not just a gift given to a few, but it is a learnable skill. Anyone who decides, they can learn it. It is for that reason that I do this series, that management is a kingdom priority, so that every kingdom citizen may say, I want to learn this skill. Now I'm ready to teach this skill. I hope you are ready for it as well.
I'm definitely ready, and I'm looking forward to this module. I hope that you, as you watch, you are also ready and looking forward to this module on basic management. And I would like to invite everyone to join us every Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Central African Time, and do invite others to join so that we can learn this skill of management.
It is a learnable skill. Let's say that together. Say to management is a learnable skill. I know we always argue about the English. I want to say to you, join me every Wednesday. You must learn about management, and we'll get into the crunch of it each week until you learn it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for connecting with us on Extraordinary Exploits with Dr. Alex. We value your connection. Join us every Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Central African Time. And remember to invite others. Experience extraordinary living.